Okay, I guess I'll ask first if anybody has any questions. I shouldn't ask questions first because then y'all might ask me things I'm already going to mention. So I'll start talking first. But start thinking of questions you may have about grading essays, how that works, like today's assignment, if you want to do that too. So I don't know if I explained my grading process on peer review day and like what that usually works like, but generally speaking, I grade 1301 papers first. So on the same day, I had 1301, 1302, and my Brit Lit class all turned in papers. So they all came in at the same time, but 1301 always gets graded first because I assume, I don't know if I mentioned this to y'all before, 1301, a lot of you, it's your first semester of college. You're worried like, what do I think about this place? Do I hate it? And you're a little maybe scared, you know, like a deer in the woods. The slightest crack and you run. So I try to get your papers back to you kind of quick. You're the ones that I grade first, and I may start grading on Saturday night, but my pregnant wife may want to see me, hang out with me, and if that's the case, I'll start grading on Sunday. I generally will always start grading on Sunday, but I try to get Saturdays in. It's just she's so good at fighting me on that. She's so cute. It's even worse when she's pregnant. You know, it's like she doesn't look like a baby, but I know there's a baby in her that looks like a baby, and it's just like, you know, you can say no to like an adult dog, but not a puppy because it's so cute. You know, because we have 3 dogs and one of them is toy sized, so that's what you call like the smallest version. It like looks like a puppy forever, and the other ones we like stop it, you're so cute. You know, we can't. She's been that way for 3 years, and we still can't punish her. So I can't ever say no to my wife because I know she's just adorable and pregnant. I'm like, I got a grade. Hang out with me. Okay. And I don't want to be that way, but you know, I'm a pushover when it comes to love. So I will be grading starting on Sunday, no matter what, and then I'll just grade the papers in the order in which I received them. My assumption is I've got like probably 60 to 70 essay 1 narrative essays to grade. And it depends on how much time I get in one sitting to grade, because usually what happens is I grade about 2 the first hour I'm grading, because it takes me some time to think and formulate thoughts and opinions. 3 the second hour, 4 the third, 5 in the fifth, and I'll float between 5 and 6 an hour after that, but it has to be consistent and straight. If I go to the next day, it starts over at 2, then 3, then 4. So I like to get a lot done in like one set at a time like that. So I'll like set aside big chunks. But if something happens in life that like, you know, gets me interrupted or something like that, then it may, you know, reset the counter. I also will on usually right at the end of Sunday nights, I'll start trying to grade the discussion posts for my literature classes, because those are always relevant to what we talk about in those classes the very next day. They're telling me what they think about the stories, and then I go into class knowing what everybody thinks about the stories and what I need to talk about and what I can spend less time on. So I'll be trying to grade those. Oh, I had Pokemon on. Okay. Sitting there vibrating constantly. I'm like, who's messaging me? So that's the plan with grading. I'll be grading you guys first. I'll take a little break to do discussion posts, but then I'll continue on until I've got y'all's done. Regarding the grading itself, what can everybody do no matter what your grade is? Resubmit it and revise. That's fantastic. Yes, or I guess in the opposite order, but revise, resubmit. You might figure out how to resubmit if anybody's already some people have already done it, right? Because you like submitted the first time and you went, oh crap, that was the wrong one, and you went right back and you saw your essay in the viewer, but on the right you'll see a button that says Start New, and you just click there and submit there again on top of the first one. And that's fine. I mean, you could even have revised it already now before I've even looked at it the first time, and you can submit the new revision. What I'll always do is, if you have that in that situation, if you have multiple copies on there, I'll always give a 0 grade to the first ones and then just grade the most recent one. So if you want to replace the one you just submitted to me with a more updated one, that's fine. You can do that. And I won't, you know, whatever the first one you submitted, that's the one I'll count in terms of were you on time or not the most recent one. So like, yeah, you might submit one today, but whatever you did for the first time, that's what I'll consider, was it on time. And because everybody can revise and resubmit, I want you not to, this is hard to convince you of. You're still not going to be happy with this. But don't think of your grade as a permanent thing. I mean, in math class, you get a score on whether you got those equations right or wrong. And that's it. It's over. Right? In most cases. It's like you can go back, and sometimes the teacher will say, well, try to rework this out, and we'll see if we can figure it out. But for the most part, I mean, most classes you get a grade that's permanent. You don't get another chance at it. You better do good the next time. My class, though, whatever you get, you can adjust and fix by, making the changes that I suggest, and turning it in again. So that's something to keep in mind whenever you get your grade back. I haven't read any of these things. I haven't read one of them yet, so I don't know what to expect. But if somebody's like wildly off topic, and if it's really off topic, what I'll usually do is my base nothing grade is like a 50. I'll only give a 0 if it's like you wrote like a paragraph, and I'm like, what's this? Or if you turned in an essay that was for the wrong topic entirely, like I asked for a narrative essay and you gave me a research paper, I'm like, I don't understand. And it's not related to narrative at all. And then I'll give it like a 0. But for the most part, like at my base, like bad grade is like 50. So if you're wildly off topic with your narrative essay, I didn't write about any of my topics, it'd be like a 50. But later, I say you need to do this. Maybe you could adjust this essay in this way so that now it's more on topic, and you say, oh, okay, so you add a paragraph here and there, and then now it would be an A essay. So I can give it an A, and now that's your new grade. So whatever you get this first time, don't think that this is the grade you're going to end up getting in the class if you stick around. That's not how it works. Every time you can revise, there's no limit on when you have to revise. So like you can revise as soon as you get it back. You can wait a couple weeks. You can do it all on week 14, day 2, when all the revisions are due. But just don't think whatever grades you get now, and people take it really personal, I've noticed. Like you have an emotional attachment to a grade, and you always will think like, that's what I think about you as a person. It's the weirdest thing, and I never understood. But like, if somebody gets like an 85, they're like, oh wow, he thinks that I'm a B. And I'm like, that's not how it works. This is one time you wrote an essay that was just a little off topic, or you didn't show me how you changed, so you have an 85. And they're like, no, he's judging me as a person. He thinks I am merely average. I'm like, that's not how this works. This is a class designed for people who, work hard, people who want to get whatever grade they want. You can, all of those things, as long as you do the revision. And I try to tell you as much as I can in detail what it is you need to fix to get the grades you want. So I basically give you like a blueprint for like what things to do to fix it. Unless it's really hard for me to figure out how to fix because something's really far off. But if that's the case and I'm not detailed enough for you, you can always email me back and say, could you explain a little more? Or see me after class and say, could you explain a little more? And I'll try to do that. I think I've covered all the grading prefaces. Are there any questions about anything that I've just said or other ideas you had that I didn't address? Do the customary 3-second wait before you step in and ask your question, and then... Nobody? Oh, come on. Somebody's got some question. No?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Go.
When you grade it, do you give the reason why? Like, let's say it's off subject.
Mm-hmm.
Do you put notes that it's not in line with what you were looking for, or you do give?
Yes, I will not.
Give the grade.
Yeah, I will not just give a number.
Okay.
I find that to be lazy and not helpful. So every single time you write an essay, if you get a grade that's not, I will admit that when it comes to, I know that I said in peer review to tell the things if they didn't do anything, if they didn't have a lot of problems, they did everything well, to say a lot of nice things. I have lots of grading, so I don't have a whole lot of time to say tons of nice things. I know this doesn't sound like rude, like I'm sorry, but I don't. I mean, you might want to if you get your, 99, want a whole paragraph about why it's so fantastic. But to me, it's like, just take your 99 and go. Be happy with what you got. Because like to me, it's usually if it's something like that high, I'll say like, wow, you really astounded me with this. But for the most part, if it's got anything that's not like 95 or above, I'm explaining what was wrong and what needs help. I've always thought that my key characteristic as a teacher that makes people want to take me again is that I don't want to say that I'm always hilarious, but there are times when I am hilarious. And when people at the end of the semester, like there's a little survey I have them do, and hilarious is something that people will put, but more often they put gives good feedback, and that always astounds me because I feel like I'm doing average feedback, and every teacher would give this kind of feedback. From what I understand, though, apparently a lot of teachers just give a number and there's no explanation of why. I'm not like that. No, I will give you a detailed explanation in the comments. There any more questions? That was a good one. Nobody knew that that was the case, and now they know.
So
yes.
how long do you have to revise once you submit the grade?
You could do it that same night when you get your grade back. You could wait a couple days, wait a couple weeks. There's no real limit. I mean, you could, I've got a ton of time free on spring break, so I'll just do it all on spring break. Or you can wait all the way to the end to week 14, day 2, when the final revisions are due. There's no real time when I say you have to have them all turned in. It's not like, oh, you have a week or then you can't do it anymore. It's just whenever you can before week 14, day 2. Again, excellent question. Nobody knew. Now they know. Oh, no? If you think of an idea like while I'm in the middle of talking and before I've transitioned to a slide, like if you hear a pause and you have an idea that you come up with, ask me. I'll halt the presentation, answer a question, because I feel like anything you want to know is, whereas what I'm saying is important. Anything you want to know, you need to know that like right now. And if you don't want to interrupt me like while I'm in the middle of giving an anecdote, which is what? Story that helps explain. Good job. Y'all are learning. I'm impressed. So while I'm doing an anecdote, you don't want to interrupt me there. You could get your phone out, write the little note down on your Notes app, whatever you've got on an Android phone. I know that's on Apple. I don't know what y'all have. Or write it down by hand and then just ask me once I'm, done there. Or you can stop me in the middle. I don't really get offended if people... now, please don't ever stop me and then ask to go to the restroom. That's always fine. You can go to the restroom whenever you want. This is college. I don't have a bathroom pass. People have been holding it every day going like, oh, thank heaven, now I know. That'd be terrible. So I'm going to move on to cause and effect if nobody has any more questions. I think I've stalled long enough. Here we go. Good. PowerPoint's still on, or the projector is. Get this show on the road. I'm going to make sure that it's on something. I don't know what's going on there. All right. Make sure the camera's pointed at me up there. I'm not too far off camera. Oh, that's actually not what I was expecting. Turn it this way. That just feels weird. Okay. Now I have some space to play. Minimize this. You all see it, right? Good job. I will have, Bobby, if you would please, hit one of those buttons, but not both, to turn one set of lights off. Yeah, there we go. I think it's dark enough we can deal with it, right? I just want to, it helps it look a little better. So, cause and effect today. I'll be assigning the cause effect essay at the end, but this is the explanation of cause effect, the essay style, and different elements of that before we get to that. So, it's about identification, analysis, and prediction. Much of the material in this presentation comes directly from the book, so you'll recognize some of the stuff if you've already gone and read that. So I'm hitting those key points. Cause-effect essays specifically address why things happen, and cause-effect essays may address only causes, only effects, or both. As you'll note when I give you the topics later, cause-effect essay does not always mean you're going to be writing about both causes and effects in equal fashion. You may be asked only to do causes. You may be asked only to do effects. maybe asked to do both of them, depending on the teacher. Sometimes you'll be asked to do causes and then something else along with it, effects and something else along with it. Depending on the nature of the question you're asked, you may have to answer it in a different way. Cause-effect analysis explains why something happened or is happening and predicts what probably will happen. So it's not limited in time. It can explain causes from the past that brought about past effects, or current or even future causes that will affect future effects. That's a confusing paragraph, so I made a very professionally made, I paid a guy to help me with this graph to explain cause and effect through time. It's professionally made. We have past, present, and future. You can see here on the time scale. So you can have a past cause that brings about a past effect. So like, apparently I was right about this the other day, and I was shocked because I don't know how I remember this, but the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand was a past cause that brought about the past effect, the start of World War I. I don't even know who that guy was. Somehow I remember that is true. I don't often know history very well, so just be impressed. The past cause, so like World War II and its effect on the current economy. Cause, meaning maybe, let's go with, what's something from the past? The invention of the transistor, which is, I believe, a computer part, right? How about we'll go with the invention of the microchip, I don't know, something. And its effect on future advancements in artificial intelligence. For example, like will we have to, or here, I like this even better. The invention of the starting of the company Tesla, and that's effect on whether my daughter will ever have to get a license. Because if not Kimberly, she's going to get a license because she has to. She's 12 now. I mean, she'll be 15 and come. I mean, she's getting that hardship. I don't know if I can make a good hardship. I want her to go to driving school. She doesn't really have any hardships anyway. Oh man, that's on camera now. She may have a hardship. I don't know how that works. But future effect would be like, will my daughter, whose current name is Callie, which may change. Did I tell you that my wife tricked me into that name? Did I tell you about that? No. She said Calliope was the muse that inspired Homer to write the Odyssey and the Iliad, and I was like, now you're finding out how to get to my heart with names. And I said, so her name will be Calliope. No, Callie. And I was like, well, I'll know the secret. So she may never have to get a license if autonomous vehicles become so autonomous that no longer are people even allowed to drive unless it's on like racetracks, because it causes more deaths than it prevents, since the software now saves everybody from, people don't get DUIs anymore. It's just stupid for anybody to drive anymore because it's, it's 2030. Why are we driving? So my daughter may not have to get a license, and that's all brought about by the invention of the microchip, because without that it wouldn't happen. Then we might have, and this is where we get a little, this is the fuzziest one I think, is present cause and effect. It depends on, like, you have to, logically speaking, it's not possible to have a present cause that brings out a present effect, because you can't have two things happening in the same exact moment that cause and affect each other, you know what I mean? Like, if I drop this pencil on the ground, and it bounces, it did not bounce in the same moment that I dropped it. They were one thing after the other, technically. But I can say that both is the present cause is me dropping the pencil, and then it bounces as a present effect, because if we consider this class period to be one present time, then I guess that would be the same. Additionally, anything that's been happening with politics right now, like the election or the inauguration of, or Trump starting the presidency and its effect on the economy, which I don't know what that is. But since we consider, like, he was just elected he was elected like a few months ago, but he's now the president in the last few weeks, any effect that he's had on the economy in the last few weeks, we can consider that to be like a present time, or like you consider a year to be a present time. It all depends on like how big you want to make the present. I think if you get a little too crazy with it though, like, well, World War II is kind of the present because we're still in that era of like thinking humans. I don't know, it's a little weird to think of it that way. But just don't be too fast and loose with the present. And you can have present causes like, you know, Trump's presidency or being the president and its effect on midterm elections in 2 years or the presidential election 4 years from now. Because we have no idea what his presidency is going to look like, but what will his start of his presidency affect later? We don't know. Like, people are just guessing right now. And then we have future causes bringing about future effects. So autonomous cars taking over, you know, the roadways and their effects on, in fact, we could say automation in general and its effect on unemployment in the future. Because they've recently done a lot of, I've read a lot of articles recently about how people are pissed off about their jobs going elsewhere, but what they should be pissed off about is robots. And you can't stop that. Robots are coming. So try to choose a job that you think only a human could do. By the way, truck driver is one of those that's right there on the top of the list. You got a family in truck driving? Get them out of that, have them go to school, get a new degree, maybe get an associate's in something else. Because truck driving is one of the jobs marked for deletion. Strangely enough, another one, accountant. Oh, I'm sorry if I just ruined your life. You may have that as your, but there'll still be jobs for accountants. It's just that since, you know, think about what's the program everybody tries to use to do their own taxes?
TurboTax.
TurboTax? Yeah. TurboTax and like even H&R Block, those people aren't trained accountants. They just come in and like run essentially like H&R Block's TurboTax on a computer and do your taxes for you. Like that's what's causing the end of like accountants as a job. Now I have here, you notice I've scratched it out. So that's future causes and future effects. But I have here it scratched out future causes that could bring about past or even present effects. I scratched it out because it's only possible in time travel scenarios. For example, Marty McFly goes to the future in 2015 in the movie Back to the Future, Part 2. Is that right? It's just called Back to the Future Part 2, right? Yeah. He goes to the future and he goes to see his parents to get his girlfriend back. And that causes Biff to get a hold of the car and go back to the past and start betting on things with the sports almanac that he found from the future. And then later, that also has an effect on the present of Back to the Future, which is Hill Valley is now a casino town and there's lots of drugs and crime. So only possible in a time travel scenario can you have the cause in the future bring about a past effect. I'm getting the sense that not enough people in this room have seen the Back to the Future films, and that's a travesty. It's magical. The whole series is. And they don't even like try to make a different film the second time. It's like they made the first film, I was like, I love that film. They're like, let's just make it again and again. So they made one in the future time, and they made one in the Wild West. And it's the same movie all 3 times. It's fantastic. Everybody should watch it. I have them on Blu-ray. That's how important they are. They are my childhood. Classification division. We haven't talked about classification division yet, but classification, simply put, putting things into categories or classifying things. And division is taking a category that currently exists, breaking it down into smaller categories. So we can say that the cause is I lost my job. So when I lost my job, what happens? Various different effects can come about. I might have little money as a result of losing my job. I may decide to go back to school, and that's even before I have little money. Maybe I just anticipate having little money in the future, so I'm going to go back to school and see about getting a degree. Then I'll be better prepared to have more money later. My wife will start working overtime. Again, that's before I have little money, and it has nothing to do with me going back to school, but maybe she needs to work overtime, and if she has that ability, we'll have her do it. The kids will get smaller at Christmas. That's a little further along. It might not even necessarily be because I have little money, but it might be coupled with this next one, closely watching finances. If you're closely watching the finances, don't spend as much on Christmas this year. Maybe a bunch of small gifts instead of one big one. And then all these things would be different effects that would come about from the singular cause. Additionally, it can go the other way as well. So one cause can bring up, many causes can bring about one effect. So I took notes, I came to class, I studied, I received financial aid. All of these causes brought about the effect I graduated. Now, if I took notes, came to class, studied, but, well, let's do it backwards. If I didn't take notes, but I came to class, I studied, and I received financial aid, would I graduate? It's possible. You might not get the grade you wanted, but it's very possible you could graduate with just those three causes. If I took notes, studied, received financial aid, but didn't come to class, will I graduate? Probably not. There's too many teachers that use attendance as a grading thing, so that wouldn't be possible, likely. Even online, same deal. If I took notes, came to class, but didn't study, and then I received financial aid, could I graduate? I mean, it depends on how well the notes were that you took and how well that stuck in your brain, but it's less likely, I think, even than the first one, because you need to study, you need to know what it is that you're, especially if you're doing like nursing. No, if you're not studying, you're screwed. You need to know what the human body does so that people don't die. Took notes, came to class, studied, but did not receive financial aid. Well, then none of us would graduate, including me. I never would have, because financial aid was how I went to school. I couldn't pay out of pocket for that. In fact, I don't even know how people have like jobs and pay for their classes as they go. I'm really impressed by that. Like when you have a job and you come to school while paying, I'm just like, that just blows my mind. Because that wouldn't even have been possible. I had a job. I just couldn't, it would not pay for my school. So all those things are needed to bring about the graduation effect in a certain way. Now the words causal relationships, so causal is a word that sounds big, but it's just because you probably haven't used it much before. But it's a way of talking about, a causal relationship just means there's a relationship between cause and effect here. So I can say graduation, based on the previous slide, has a causal relationship with taking notes, studying, going to class, and receiving financial aid. I could also reverse that sentence and it would still be true. I mean, you could list the effect first, then the cause, or the cause first, and the effect. So you can say it's a causal relationship. It's a really cool, that makes you sound really smart. It's like you have your job and like you notice, oh, well, boss, I noticed that there's a causal relationship between how close we have the product placed to the register and how often people buy it. If we put it close to the register, that causes them to buy it. If we put it far away from the register, they don't buy it. But you use the word causal relationship, and that makes you sound real smart. You may get a raise, you may get promoted if they realize that you're intelligent, or you may have one of those bosses that is threatened by intelligence and doesn't want you to take their job. Know your audience, okay? Very important to know your audience, which we've talked about before. Know what's appropriate in a given scenario. Most causal relationships are not easy to figure out and are subtle and complex, bless you. Most complex situations involve numerous causes and many different effects that we can't possibly fully anticipate. So the different types of causes that we have are the main cause, which is the most important cause of many, and the contributory causes, the less important causes. So the book uses an example of a roof collapse in Connecticut. At first, a contributory cause, bless you, seemed to be the main cause, the huge amount of snow on the roof. So there's this giant snowstorm, tons of snow on a roof, the roof collapses, hey, the cause must be the snow. But it turns out that was just a contributory cause. The person who poorly designed the roof turned out to be or really the poor roof design, turned out to be the real main cause, as most other roofs sustained the snow just fine. There were other sizable buildings that are almost the exact same size in the area. Their roofs did not collapse. So the snow can't be the only cause, otherwise every other roof of that size would have collapsed. So what they had to realize was that it was the poor roof design that allowed this building to collapse. It was not made for that much snow, as it should have been. You can think of too, like, I remember Atlanta a couple years ago during snowpocalypse, and like basically the whole city was shut down. Like the highway wasn't moving for like days. People were just stuck in their cars for hours, stuck on the highway, not moving. So that was a result of poor design of the city, never designed for snow. It's just because they'd never really had it, so they didn't think they would have to. But it was all due to the poor design, not the snow itself, because places in like Colorado were doing just fine with way more snow. So it couldn't be the snow that's the main cause, but a contributory cause. There's also, main causes can be immediate or remote. Same with main contributory causes. They can be immediate or remote. And what does that mean? Immediate causes closely precede the effect, so they're pretty easy to recognize. So an immediate cause is something we see. It's very close to the effect that it has in time. So for instance, the snow falling on the roof or the rain in the streets, which I'll talk about here soon, pouring so quickly. So the snow falls on the roof. I see the snow falling on the roof. Then the roof collapses. I saw that. So that's an immediate cause because I can see it making it collapse. Remote causes, these are less obvious perhaps because they involve something in the past or far away. Like the design of the roof, nobody thinks like, oh, it's the snow that causes the roof to collapse. Well, really it's the guy who decided to design a roof that wouldn't sustain that amount of snow is the true cause of the collapse. I can't remember if this is true or not, I'll mention it, but I think that years before the World Trade Center was hit by, years before 9/11 basically, there was a bombing, I think, on the first floor of both towers. The basement parking lot. I think at the time when I was reading about it, it said that they had sustained, the structural supports had sustained damage, but not damage enough that would cause the building to be shut down. It was just a little bit of damage on the supports. Not anything that would cause it to collapse under any sort of normal stressors that might come from wind or weather. But the problem was later when somebody, people hit them with two planes. I don't know that was, of course, the main cause, I think, in that case of the buildings falling down was the two planes hitting them. It probably would have happened over time no matter what. But I think that these structural support problems caused by the earlier bombing were at least a contributory cause that brought the buildings down. There's no way of knowing. Maybe the people who've gone back there know now, and maybe I need to read up on it further, but at the time, I don't think that I saw anybody saying that it wasn't a factor at all. But that would be a very remote cause. It's 10 years prior to that happening. And you never know. You could have a situation where even something like, my family's poor now because my grandpa sold off the land they later found had oil on it 60 years ago. And we wouldn't be poor if it weren't for grandpa being short-sighted and desperate and wanting to go to the casino. I don't know why grandpa had to go to the casino in this scenario, but I just assume if he sold his land like that so quickly, he would go to the casino, at least for a few days. Live it up. So remote causes happen way before, or they're far away and difficult to determine. This right here is another professionally drawn diagram. So this is a drawing of basically my street and my house. We noticed about 2 years after we moved into, or 2 years after my wife moved into the house, and I was just sort of always around, that our garage, under those really heavy rains where it rains for like an hour and you can barely see in front of your face if you go outside, in those situations, the garage floods. It floods often to a point where it will roll over onto the garage is like this much lower than the rest of the foundation, but if it gets this high, then the water starts to roll into our kitchen, like underneath the wall and through the kitchen out the back, which is not good. You don't want that. Anybody who's familiar with homeownership. And it's possible even, and it's never happened since we've installed the floor, but it's possible for it to roll onto the concrete that goes underneath our laminate wood floor that would then cause it to start to buckle and warp, if too much moisture got to it. So that's something that, we don't like. And we noticed when our garage flooded, and it happened on occasion, at this point I've finally built a cinder block wall barrier that keeps out enough that we don't have to worry about it, which is good, but horribly ugly. And what I'd really like to do is find a way to stop it permanently. Why is my garage flooding? My wife thought, and a guy who came and looked at our house thought, well, what we need to do is right here in your driveway, put a little trench and a pump, and it'll pump the water out as it comes. The problem with this is the reason that my garage floods is that the level of the water in my yard is that high. Like, it's that high. So unless it can pump, like, I'm assuming like a few tons of water in a period of 5 to 10 minutes, I don't think that the whatever pump they put in there is going to work. And I was like, what's actually causing this problem? I'm looking, and I was like, that's just a contributory cause. I think it's not going to fix the problem, because you're going to have a pump that's underwater, which is not going to, I mean, it's going to be really far underwater, like this far underwater, trying to pump water that's continuously coming at it, which doesn't make any sense. And one time I came home and I noticed something. I came home during one of these big rains, right as it was starting, and saw that this street here that we have near our house, water comes down it on both curves. Our main road here, water comes down both curves there. Now, when these water come to this, they kind of just join up with this water on this curve. The problem is, every time they've repaired this road over the years, rather than scrape off the old crappy layer and put on a new one, they just put on a new one, which means the road in some cases is higher than the yards. And in this particular case, the road here in the middle is not as high as it is on the curb. And so what happens is the water, half of it, like, or a third, like maybe even more, rolls across the street when this low dippy part. And so now we have 3 curbs worth of water coming down one side of the street, and there's nowhere for it to go. And so what happens is it comes up this side street here and says, yes, there's a place to go. The problem is there's a hill right here, so it all gets stopped. But it's still pushing forward, trying to get in there, so it has nowhere to go but into my yard and raises the level of water in my yard, and then it comes into my garage. So the true cause of this, I figured out through careful analysis and observation of detail, was poor civil engineering. You know, the people who design the streets are morons. And until I can go to the city and explain to them that they need to spend millions of dollars fixing our street so that my garage doesn't flood once every other year, I'll be unhappy that whole time. So, you know, I'm just going to have to, I guess, deal with it, because I'm never going to fix the whole daggum road just for me. But I now know what the true cause is, and I know that I shouldn't have wasted $2,000 getting something etched out of my driveway so I could buy a pump that wouldn't do anything. Saved a lot of money there. So effective cause and effect analysis can not just be great on papers, but can save you in real life situations and keep you from wasting money making poor decisions. Now, a causal chain, and this is probably truly how most things work in life, though they're far more complicated than this and involve multiple chains. But a cause will generally bring about an effect that is in itself a cause that brings about an effect that is also in itself another cause, and so on and so forth, where one thing causes the next and causes the next and then brings out an eventual effect, which probably itself will also be another cause. This is likely a result of, what is it, Newton's third law? An object in motion tends to stay in motion, object at rest tends to stay at rest. Or no, what's the one I'm thinking of? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. What's that one? Second? So anytime you have one thing happen, it has an effect on some other thing that has to provide an opposite, and so on and so forth to eternity. So let's say that I missed 3 months in school in 3rd grade from being very sick, which then led me to be behind all the other students, which led me to cheat on my work, which led me not to understand the work I was doing, which led me not to care, which led me to become frustrated and quit trying and, you know, quit school. Now, if you take any link out of this chain and other events transpire, the eventual effect is not reached. So if I don't miss 3 months of school in 3rd grade from being sick, I probably won't get behind, I won't cheat, I won't not understand. I'll then continue to care since I do understand, and I won't get frustrated and quit trying. I'll stay in school and be happy. Or if I miss 3 months but somehow don't get behind, then there's no reason to cheat, which means I will still understand what I'm doing, and so on and so forth. So if you remove one of these links in the chain, the eventual effect may not still happen. You need all of these things together to bring about that eventual effect. And that's what a causal chain is. It's a cause-effect chain that one after the other, each thing causes the next thing, and so on and so forth to almost eternity. One great thing about cause-effect analysis, and just the idea of cause-effect in general, is that it generally organizes your paper for you. Whatever topic you're given kind of tells you to deal with causes, effects, or both. And also, you know, you should probably usually start with the causes, then move on to effects if that's the case, if it makes the most sense. One thing to be aware of, though, when writing one of these papers, when coming up with your main causes, contributory causes, all that kind of stuff, remote immediate, is to do not mistake coincidence for causality. And what that means is not to do post hoc reasoning, which is to equate a chronological sequence with causality. So just because an event comes before another one does not mean the first one caused the second. I don't know what the true answer to this question is, but it seems like every time there's a shift from, or not every time, but I've noticed that throughout history, like there's sometimes a shift, like when you have a shift in political party, like the economy will change as soon as the new political party takes office. And it seems like all the Democrats will say, well, the Republicans' new policies are causing these economic problems. But then the Republicans say, no, it's having to fix the mistakes of the Democrats from all those years that are causing these new economic problems because we're having to clean up the mess that they left. And there's no real knowing exactly what the right answer is there. But both people in those cases are, a lot of people are assuming that what's happening right now is a result of things that are happening right now, when it could be something that was brought about a long time ago, not something that was done seconds ago. So don't mistake coincidence for causality, just seeing something that just happened right now as the cause because you can see it. In other words, don't mistake an immediate cause for the major cause just because it's immediate. Here's another example that's even more absurd. I asked my girlfriend, now my wife, to marry me. At that moment in San Antonio when I did that, it rained. I mean, I'm not going to instantly have this realization where I go, oh man, I can like go to California where they're having a big drought and I can offer my services. And then like we show up and I'm like, yeah, it'll be like $250K. And then, you know, I say, honey, will you marry me? And then like expect rain because it happened before. That's just not how it works. That would be really idiotic version of mistaking just because one thing happened right afterwards, me thinking that it would happen again. That's just dumb. And there are other ways in which you might not be dumb, but which you may still be mistaking something closely preceding something else to it causing it. Now, word choice is very important, so we often will, in the same way on a narrative essay, that we would put ourselves in the moment and use present tense when really in the past. In a cause-effect essay, we will often switch to chronological language when we're trying to talk about causes and effects. Like, it's very important in this example that I say, I missed 3 months of school in third grade from being very sick, which led me to be behind the other students, because that's saying that thing caused this other thing. This is something people like to do that I'm about to say, which is not cause-effect language and does not work. I missed 3 months of school in third grade from being very sick, so then I got behind all the other students, so then I achieved on my work. So then does not mean one thing caused the next. It just means so afterwards this happened. Now you might think that so does enough job of explaining which thing is a cause, but you're literally just saying chronologically this thing happened next. You're not talking about cause effect at all. So you need to be aware if you are or aren't talking about causes or not. Or I didn't just say that or not at the end of it. Now there are 3 basic options for your paper, depending on the topic. Is you'll discuss causes, you'll discuss effects, or you'll discuss causes and effects. You can discuss one or the other, or both, depending on the topic that you get. And this is the thing I would definitely write down. Your thesis for a cause-effect essay should tell your readers 3 things. The issues you plan to consider. For example, my sample topic here has, one of them is like binge drinking among college students. So that could be the issue you plan to consider. The position you will take, and it's going to ask you to figure out the major cause of it, so you're going to have to say this is the cause, and that will be the position you take. So once you've named the issue you plan to consider and the position you will take, you're also going to emphasize whether you're looking mostly at causes, effects, or both. And the thesis should, almost imply that. So one of the topics that I have here is, what do you say is the major cause of binge drinking? Based on that, formulate some specific solutions. So your thesis will need to say what the major cause of binge drinking is among college students. And then maybe have a couple of solutions in the thesis as well. Or you may wait till later to get the solutions. You may just want to use the thesis for the cause and then solutions come at the end. It's up to you. But it's got to have issues you plan to consider, position you'll take, and then whether your emphasis is on causes, effects, or both, which should be clearly labeled by the topic in most cases. Have any more time with this?
You can show
Samples?
examples, like
Yes. When I pass off the assignment, I'll explain each one of those types. Sample essay will have an example thesis, which I'll talk about. I don't want you to write all these down because it's just going through logically what are the many different possibilities of writing a cause-effect paper depending on the needs of the topic. I mean, I don't think that this is necessary, but it said that you could approach the structure of a cause-effect paper by chronologically, just talk about the causes or effects in whatever order they occurred. Do the main cause first, then contributory causes. Contributory ones first, then main. Stress the positives by starting with the negatives. Stress the negatives by starting with the positives. Dismiss non-causes and then do the real causes. Start with the obvious ones, then move on to the more subtle stuff. I mean, it all depends on the needs of what you're writing and what it's asking for. There's no way of just writing down this list and then knowing exactly what you would need. My suggestion is going back to the book and looking at this list. Whenever you need to maybe do a cause-effect assignment for another class. So as you can see, there's many options. Earlier I mentioned causal chains, and I wanted to look at a pure causal chain that doesn't have very many other outside factors. So I wanted to show you just something fun before we move on to assigning the assignment. It's a music video. And has anybody heard of a Rube Goldberg machine? If you haven't, what that is it's a machine that is a needlessly complicated machine designed to bring about a very simple result at the end of the word is machinations, or machinations, meaning the machinery of it, the end of the eventual movement of the parts. So if you'll hit the other button, turn it off, Bobby will watch this. And I'll explain how this is a causal chain as we go. It'll take a second for it to load up. So see, the man has the truck, so he's going to push the truck, so that's the first cause. And that's a little tougher because the truck, I'm not going to do this the whole time. The truck pushes the first domino, which then pushes the second and the third and so on and so forth and creates a causal chain of domino tipping. And then moves on to other things. So the dominoes then will cause the string to pull the car, which lets the other car go, which hits the ball that goes through gravity down to a record, which pulls a string, which starts the iPod, which hits the ball bearing, which goes down the thing and then hits the other ball bearings one after the other. And they sync up with music. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. So there's a subtle remote cause there. One of the reasons those ball bearings hit when they did was because the humans had decided they wanted to sync up with the music. So that's a more remote cause beyond just the obvious gravity things that are causing most of the stuff to happen. Now I stopped it for just a second to show you that all this stuff caused up. So every single thing existing where it did in this entire causal chain was very important, especially in terms of how long each thing took, because they had to start the song when it started, right? And they've actually synced up this entire beginning of this long causal chain. so that the music syncs up with these glasses that are about to be hit, and the chords will match the chords from the song, which is crazy, and I don't even know how they did this. Like, that's absurd. Like, that they were able to sync that up. And that's a complicated cause brought about by people really wanting something ridiculous to happen. You can see how many times this took, because look, there's a piano, right, that just fell. There's another piano. So it's not the first time they've tried this. This guy has really a hard time with this. You constantly see him not singing or nodding his head just so he can keep up with the time. See how many times they tried that in the background with the TVs? That's ridiculous. He doesn't know what's happening. He just makes the ball happen. Now you realize what caused them to have paint on them, little paint cans. So they're really excited. This probably took them months, and so I mean that's a true causal chain. I think is a Rube Goldberg machine, where like every single cause brings about the next effect, and there's not really much other happening beyond what I told you was the remote cause, which is them deciding they wanted things to sync up in a certain way, or there were certain thematic elements, which I don't really think that a lot of it goes with what the music is, but maybe you could, I don't know. Other than that, though, it's just mostly fun. So now I'm going to assign SA2, so we can go ahead and turn the lights back on, both of them, and I'll assign it. Hopefully y'all can remind me I need to open up the program, Microsoft Word, to do this so that it's on video. So there's one. This one's slightly bigger than the other packet because I provided 2 sample essays, one which I think is achievable by most human beings, and the other one which is far too good, and I still don't know how the guy wrote it. Okay, let me pull this up on the computer. All right.
Start recording.
What?
Did you say that remind you to start recording?
Oh no, you freaked me out because I thought I hadn't been recording. No, the recording was fine. I just need to be reminded to use this to show you all the essay and not the paper packet. My gosh, I was freaking out just then. I was like, is it not recording? What a waste. Okay, so here is the assignment. It's assigned week 3, day 2, so you got 2 weeks to think about this. Do week 5, day 2. And you're going to want to pick one of these 3 assignments, and each one of them has specific stuff within it as well. So you have a number of different options. So the first topic is, how do you account for the popularity of one of the following? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Tinder, cosmetic surgery, hip-hop, video games, homeschooling, or reality TV. Not and, but or. So one of those things. So how do you account for the popularity of, say, Facebook? Then write an essay considering remote as well as immediate causes for the success of the phenomenon you choose. So the obvious things and then also the not so obvious things. So are we talking about causes in that one?
Yes.
Yes. Are we talking about effects in that one? I heard it very quietly, but no. No, we're not. So there's no asking for the effects of Facebook, just what caused it to be popular. That's all it asks for. Then there's, what do you see to be the major cause of any one of these problems? Binge drinking among college students, voter apathy, school shootings, vaccination demonizing, or academic cheating. Based on your identification of the major cause, formulate some specific solutions for the problem you select. So does this ask for causes?
Yes.
So I saw some people yes, and then some people shaking their head no. I wonder, why was there a disagreement? I'll tell you why I asked a trick question. Technically, you're thinking of only one cause, the major one. So yes, we're dealing only with causes, but specifically even only one cause. Now we may dismiss some of the non-causes real quick and then move on to the real causes if you decide to approach it that way. But for the most part, you just have to address the one major cause and not deal with multiple ones, which actually should free you up if you think about it. Are you doing any effects in that one?
Because it's asking for solutions.
Solutions or effects only in the sense that your solutions are intended to solve whatever effects happen. But in general, no, you don't really have to have effects. You could talk about what's the cause of it and then just solve it without ever really telling me what's wrong with it. Because I think with a topic like school shootings, we all know what the negative effects are of school shootings. I don't think many people have to be told, well, what's wrong with school shootings? I think that's a fairly obvious, and most of them kind of are. Well, I mean, I guess unless, depending on if you have a personal disbelief in vaccinations, which if I were, I wouldn't write a paper where you say you don't believe in vaccinations, that they're helpful. I just wouldn't write that paper for me because I'm not likely to be kind to that paper. I tend to disagree with that fairly heavily, and it's one of my few things that I tend not to sway on. Because I don't really feel like they help people not get diseases, and people who think that they don't or that they cause. It's been disproven for a long time that they cause autism, so I don't want to hear anybody's. In fact, the one guy who said they cause autism, he recanted that years ago, but then it was already stuck in people's minds, so they just went with it. So just please don't write me those papers about how vaccinations cause autism. I'm just not looking for it. That's my one thing. I might have one other thing, but I can't remember what it is right now. Number 3, write an essay considering the likely effects of a severe protracted shortage of one of the following commodities: clean water, rental housing, cell phones, vaccines, books, net neutrality, education, family planning services, or gasoline. You may consider a community or city or statewide shortage or a nation or worldwide crisis. So does that ask for causes? No causes whatsoever. Don't need them. So does it ask for effects? When you kind of already answered that, but yeah, all kinds of effects. And it says that you have a lot of leeway there for whether you want to do just like a citywide clean water loss, or if you want to do a worldwide clean water loss. And now a lot of people don't pick this one, even though it's the easiest topic, because of the word protracted, and I think they get confused and think it means math because of protractor, but don't worry. It just means severe and basically acute. It happens all at once very quickly. That's what it means. So all of a sudden clean water is just not available. Yes, ma'am.
Does gasoline, does that count for all fossil fuels or just gasoline?
I would say Explain what you mean by other fossil fuels that aren't gasoline.
Like, the nuclear power we use to, do electricity and, like all the fossil fuels that we use 24/7. Like if suddenly we just can't use any of it, or if it's just gasoline for our cars.
There are fossil fuels used in nuclear plants?
I think so.
Like what?
I don't remember. I read about it in like 7th grade.
Huh. I know that they use, I think, uranium pellets.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that was a fossil fuel.
I'm not really sure. It's been a long time since.
I mean, if you find, in just looking things up, that nuclear power plants use fossil fuel, I mean, I guess it would even have effect on nuclear power, since somebody's going to have a truck using gasoline to get to the nuclear plant to bring it the uranium pellets. I think it's uranium. I'm not 100% sure. But still stick with just the gasoline and its effect. My assumption is that if there was a sudden loss of gasoline, that would be a result of the sudden loss of oil. So you can kind of assume that the oils that create the fossil fuels are also unavailable for some reason. And granted, it doesn't have to be on a worldwide scale. It could just be, and like one city loses access and can't get access. Now, I will caution you that down below here, it says have a clear thesis. You don't have to document any sources for this paper, use any references, or have a works cited page. However, if you do decide to cite sources, you must cite your sources and attempt to follow MLA style by using MLA tab on your writer's reference, which is the spiral bound book. And if you happen to do MLA slightly incorrectly, I will be forgiving of that because you're just trying to use it this first time. It's not like it's required on this essay. So if you end up messing the MLA up, I can try to, if it's bad enough, I'll try to guide you on what you need to do to fix it the next time, since it will matter on essay 3. But if you decide to cite sources, the one that really causes a problem for usually is the third essay, where, remember, it asks you to consider the likely effects of a severe protracted shortage, and that's the likely effects. So this is for a place that is not currently experiencing that loss. So a lot of people will just end up writing me a paper. I've had this happen before, a cited paper about what has already happened when Flint, Michigan lost access to clean water. But that's not what I'm asking. You need to think of a place that has not lost access to clean water, and what the effects likely would be if it did. You can use information about Flint, Michigan to write a paper about what it would be like in Greenville or what it would be like in Dallas, but you can't talk about this is what would happen in Flint, Michigan, because we already know the answer to that. It's already happened. So it has to be likely effects, so hypothetical situations, not real existing, it's already happened somewhere situations. And you can, if you want, like if we lose gasoline here, you can cite what happened in the 80s when there was a gasoline shortage for what would likely happen these days. But you can't do something that's literally already happened somewhere and just talk about that, because that's not likely effects. That's actual effects that have already happened. Let me see. So the format, really all you really care about, I think, is the 600 to 1,000 words. And this paper should be limited to third-person point of view. So you can't talk about yourself this time. No I, me, my, myself, your, yours, our, ours, us, ourselves. None of those words, only objective words. You'll be great on your ability to identify causes and their effects depending on which topic you choose. So some want causes, some want effects. Follow an organizational style appropriate to the type of essay. Maintain interest and clarity through personal commentary and varying sentence structure. Contain a valid thesis. Carefully follow these specific directions according to your choice of topic 1, 2, or 3, so don't mix topics, and satisfy the length. And again, my hint, it says hint, but it's really the bold idea that people usually mess up on. Your paper does not necessarily have to contain lengthy explanation of both causes and effects. Do what the assignment asks you to do. So, for example, if an assignment doesn't ask for causes but only effects, then do not speak of causes. There's 2 samples in this packet, though I'm really going to only read to you guys the first one. Again, papers are always submitted on Blackboard, and keep your content appropriate for peer review. Now, the next page, I've provided a cheat sheet, as I call it, because these are capitalized, bolded versions of the topics put in simple form, because this used to be my essay that people messed up on the most until I provided the cheat sheet, and now people do a little bit better job. So in each topic, you got to pick one, topic 1, pick like Facebook Give me a remote and immediate causes for the popularity. Both. So don't just tell me, I can do this simple thing or this other simple thing that's easy to see on the surface. Tell me what's it about human psychology that makes Facebook popular? Like, what is it about just innate in us biologically that causes us to want to get on Facebook? And it says no effects, but all of these will say this little parenthetical thing. No effects unless you use it as an introduction strategy. So you can talk about the negative effects of Facebook in the introduction as a reason to talk about what made it popular, but it doesn't need to be in the body of the essay because that doesn't need to be part of your thesis. So if you're using it to introduce it before the thesis comes, that's fine. But once the thesis comes, everything after that needs to be thesis involved. You need to be making that point afterwards. Now, the second topic, you'll pick one like binge drinking among college students. Briefly identify the one cause. So not tell me, well, it's lack of security, it's mental health, it's all these other things. I need to know one big cause. So like lack of mental health screening. Give me no effects, again, unless it's used as an introduction strategy. So tell me that, school shootings are terrible. Look at what they've done the last few years, and that's just what you're saying in the introduction, but then you move on to your thesis as to what has caused them and how do we fix it. Then you'll provide solutions to the problem. Now, I must also say that if you say something like mental health screening for school shootings, or like mental health, lack of proper mental health services is the reason we have school shootings, but then you tell me all the solutions are hiring more security guards for schools, adopting no gun policies, having metal detectors on the way into school. None of those things address mental health services. All of those are security issues. So what you need to tell me is that the school shootings happen because of a lack of adequate security, because that's the problem you're solving. So whatever solutions you're providing need to match whatever problem you're saying is the major cause. And topic 3, you need to pick one like clean water. Give me no causes unless you use possible future causes as an introduction strategy. So if you're doing gasoline, you might say, who knows, someday the Earth may finally, humans may finally use up all the oil underneath the Earth. At that point, what will we do? It's important to consider the likely effects of the loss of gasoline to our society. And then you're using that as an introduction strategy, the possible future causes. But you're not making that a part of your point later where you're spending time saying, here are the likely effects. And you deal with only effects. Then I also don't want you to tell the story of a possible apocalypse in narrative style. Often this devolves into that, where people essentially turn this essay into like a retelling of The Walking Dead, where you're like, first we lose access to gasoline, then we can't go to the store to get food, then we can't go get water, they can't pump water, then people are rioting, people are stealing stuff from each other, then people start murdering each other, forming packs, then everybody's killing each other, and there's only a few people left, and everybody's doing these horrible atrocities, and there's only like 5 people left, and then there's no humans left on the earth. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, don't tell me this like crazy story. Limit it to like categories of different effects that might happen. How it would hurt health, the economy, those kinds of things. Your question.
That was kind of my answer. So we can, like let's take gasoline for instance. We can talk about how, like you were saying, the trucks can't get to the places that they need to be.
Yes.
Well, in turn, because the trucks can't get there, we won't have nuclear power.
Right.
And then because we don't have, so not to do that, where it kind of...
Not to do it where you just go in a causal chain type fashion. What I want you to do instead is to categorize things. So say it would affect transportation, and then talk about all the transportation effects. Then human health, and then all those, you can think about how all that transportation issues might affect human health.
Make like an individual paragraph for each.
Right, yeah, exactly. I do want to, real quick, show you, I'm not going to read the whole essay, but I do want to hit the key points of this essay and show you what they do well. So I actually removed this topic because she did it so well that people always did worse than her. But on topic 2, where you had to identify the major cause, it was childhood obesity. and then you had to formulate some specific solutions. So what she does here in this essay, and you can go read it on your own to find out the details, but she says childhood obesity is a problem. Then she talks about why it's a problem. You know, it's a health concern, creates issues with the child's self-image, and you might be like, well, but Nichols, those are effects of childhood obesity. Those aren't causes. Yeah, but she's using it as an introduction strategy, which I said was okay. So she's talking about what's wrong with childhood obesity before she ever does her thesis. Then she gives the thesis a reason to exist. And her thesis is, there are several factors that can cause childhood obesity, but one stands out the most: lack of parental guidance. So that's her major cause. The very next paragraph is her talking about what parents do to show that they're the cause. You know, they got to get ready for work and school, so there's quick sugary cereals, Pop-Tarts, no time for well-balanced meals. Because of school events and stuff, they go to McDonald's and Taco Bell for all their food needs. Kids are eating lunch at school, but those aren't even nutritious anymore. So there is no sit-down meal that families have every day, so they don't value nutritional foods. So it's the lack of parental guidance there. And her solutions are very specific. At least one of them is. So this paragraph right here talks about have a thing called a food rave night where parents come to the school with the kids, and everybody does this, like, essentially like a cooking class where you learn how to cook a healthy meal together as a family. You learn about the nutrition, how to cook it. And I thought that was a really neat, specific solution to the problem that gets the parents involved, takes away that guidance problem, makes it where it happens at the school, so there's a set place where it can happen. It's an event that would recur. What people often do that messes this up is they'll say something like, parents should pay attention to their children. But, I mean, that's not a specific solution. That's a suggestion. You need to have some kind of structure to the solution in order for it to be specific enough. And I felt that way about this paragraph. She says, urge parents to listen to their kids. And I'm like, ugh. But then finally she said, you could take a few hours on a Sunday to cook several meals for the week and freeze them, then thaw them out during the week to eat them. And that would help you eat nutritious meals throughout the week. And I was like, okay, that's a more specific idea. Still not specific enough, but more specific. And then she sums it up in the conclusion. But I gave her a 95 because she did the major cause, then her solutions solve for that specific cause, which is what I want everybody to do. The other sample essay is on voter apathy. It's absolutely genius and barely seems like it was written by a student, more like a professional writer. But I think that reasonably people could write the obesity paper because it sounds like a human wrote it. The other one sounds like some sort of writing machine wrote it. But that's the assignment. Y'all have a great weekend. If you have any further questions, you can stick behind asking.